I'm Jess.
I'm Clint.
And today we are going to be talking about schizophrenia. Specifically, warning signs that someone may be struggling and the polite way to ask if they are okay and or they need help. Now, navigating this situation can be a little difficult sometimes. I understand it is a lot, but it can either expedite or put a delay on the process of someone getting the help that they need. So it definitely needs to be handled with some finesse and some compassion and some patience. So I have my lovely support system here with me, and I'm going to ask his input on things because there's two very different perspectives here. Me being the one who is ill, or whatever you would like to call it, and then the one who is supporting me and who sees my behaviors that I'm not necessarily aware of. So what are some of the warning signs to look out for, and what should someone be aware of?
I think for you, I guess the first symptoms that really stood out that there was something significantly something else going on more than just I think like we talked a lot about you having depression or you struggling with mental health, but what I feel like put you past that was like there was like you were spacey, like the lack of emotion, but the real red flags were like your inability to like even speak, just like complete sorry, I'm forgetting the term.
You don't have to be.
So yeah, inability to speak or communicate, being spacey, the audible and visual distortions and seeing things and hearing things were also like, so I guess those were like the three big red flags. Not being able to speak or communicate, seeing things, hearing things. And then I guess from my perspective, or from this, like from your perspective, if you're trying to help somebody, is don't put your own spin on things. Like you really need to be able to meet the person where they are. So take things at face value. If they say they're hearing something, don't try and rationalize it. If they say they're seeing something, again, don't try and rationalize it because to you that's the logical reaction or the logical response. You really need to meet people where they are at when it comes to their mental health or their mental illness. And then, and only then, can you start working with them towards a solution. But if you're just trying to rationalize everything, all that's going to do is keep putting a blanket over these problems. And that's probably what this person has been dealing with their entire life. Because for other people, it makes you more comfortable when your spouse, your partner, or your friend, your family member, you don't have to acknowledge that they're sick, or you don't have to acknowledge that there's something that you can't comprehend going on with them. So it's easier for you to impose your rationale on them than for you to meet them where they are in a space that doesn't make sense to you. Sorry, I went on a tangent there.
No, it's okay. That was a good tangent, so we're good with it. So I guess next would be not how to have the conversation, but how did you prepare yourself for that conversation?
Again, I think there's really no preparation. It's more so about the headspace that I was in, and it's coming to the table with a clean slate. Again, like you have to be able to ask questions that don't lead back to what makes sense to you. You might have to go down a rabbit hole with this person, and it's a good thing, because if you're able to go down that rabbit hole with them, it might also help them piece things together. It might help them gain a bit more reality, whereas what they're seeing is distorted. And when you do get in front of a doctor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, you can then help draw a picture or illustrate what this person is going through, because you were willing to be an open sounding board for them. But again, if you're not coming to that table or that conversation with that open mindset, you're not helping anybody. You might think you are by bringing logic and rationale and no, like, you're crazy, like, you can't hear that, like, the object of that conversation should not be to ostracize that person further than they already feel. So you really have to be cautious and cognizant of what you're bringing to the table, and at the end of the day, that it really should be nothing. You're in that conversation to hear, to observe, and then report to a professional who can actually help them.
Yes, you made excellent points, and actually the first point that I wanted to bring up on how to have that conversation with someone is that both of you are in a good headspace. So you need to be in a good headspace, and then you need to ask me or be aware if I'm in a good headspace, because if I'm not, like you said, we're going to go down a rabbit hole. You're not going to get through to me. I may try and fight with you. Who knows how I'm going to react. But if I'm not in a good headspace, you're just not going to get through to me. So that comes down, you need to be calm, open, non-judgmental, patient, and probably most important to me at least is non-reactive. So, and you're really good at this. You're really good. Regardless of what comes out of my mouth or what I'm saying, doing, you don't react. And that, had you react, or if you do, it's going to come back on me, and I'm going to have an even bigger reaction. So that next,
I do want to expect that's something I didn't really think of, and I don't think most people think of that. Like, you're in a conversation and it's normal to react to what the other person says to you, right? Your expressions, your body language changes, you have audible responses, and in these situations it is so crucial that you don't. I know you like it, but you don't always like it, because I'm like that the majority of the time.
well,
so
it depends. If I'm talking, I want eyes on me, you know.
So for me, when I'm doing that, I'm listening, but I'm also at that same time actively processing. So it's not really like, holy shit, like that's what you're thinking. It's okay, I hear that's what you're thinking. Now I'm trying to think of, okay, what's the next question I can ask to help understand why you're thinking what you're thinking, or how you got to that place. So I think that's so important, because the majority of people don't think about how much we communicate via non-speech. So, changing your body language, and somebody tells you that they're seeing something, then they're going to be like, oh, well, now I sound crazy. I'm just not going to talk about it. Maybe I didn't see something. So you have to be very cognizant of, again, the emotion and the body language that you're bringing to the conversation.
That's, like you said, it's crucial, absolutely crucial. So next up, incredibly important, and you already touched on this, is you need to remove your emotion and how you feel. Because at that point in time, it's not about you. It's about your partner or your mother, your father, whoever it may be that you're trying to help. It's not about you or how it makes you feel. And in that, dependent on the state that person is in, they're not going to want to hear it. Like, it's going to make them feel bad. They already feel bad enough that you have to deal with it. Like, so when you're trying to reach someone, just make sure that your emotion is completely out of it.
It's so important. I mean, I could repeat the exact same things you said, but you hit the nail on the head. It's, you really just have to be able to do that.
Yeah. So another important piece is to have a goal in mind and don't deviate. So again, you're coming to someone to ask them if they're okay. You don't want to deviate and be like, well, you don't do this, this, and this anymore, and you're not doing that, or you're doing this, and it turns into a fight. The person on the receiving end of the conversation may try and deviate and get that away from them because they don't want to deal with it, or they may not see that it's a problem yet. but you need to have that hammer and you need to use it. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Hammer's it's a hard tool. But yeah, I think like all of this ties in together, right? Like if you come in with that mindset that you, like you said, your goal is to help, you have to come in with the mindset that you're there to help and take everything out of it. And like you said, like it's very easy to deflect when you're, I've never experienced what you experienced, but I've experienced, being, where I'm the one who's been hurt or whatever it may be, or I'm in a bad headspace, and you're not always in that space to receive what somebody's trying to do or receive the help that somebody's trying to give you. So it is easy to deflect. Now you, on the other hand, on the other side of that table, like you said, you have to be able to recognize that and don't jump into that rabbit hole, because it is easy, right? Like, again, like back to one of my favorite, like when you're having your episode and, I was just continue doing the routine I was doing. I was listening. We were in a room together, and you got upset that I didn't just drop what I was doing and just focus all my attention. And you got upset, and I said, look, like, I'm actively listening. I'm actively participating in this conversation. I get the state that you're in. You're not mad that I'm doing this. You're upset because you're upset. And it's okay that you're upset, but you're not upset with me. So come back, sit down, and let's have the conversation. And it's just that, like, you came at me and I could have reacted and I could have been just as upset, or I could have, like, that argument could have gone left. But instead, again, like you said, like taking myself in the situation, remaining calm, listening and observing, I could easily say, like, okay, this isn't about me. You're not mad at me. You're just upset. So let's get back on track, right? and that's, I think, like that was a key, like that's a key example of that scenario in action, right? Like just being able to focus on making sure, like in that situation, my goal was to make sure that you were okay physically. I know mentally you might not have been, but physically that you're okay and that you feel safe. And that's really all I could do in that situation. So me going down that argument path with you would have gone nowhere for either of us, right?
That would have been brutal.
And then it just makes your day 10 times worse, right? You already had a bad experience on your own, and now you're having a bad experience with me, and now you have to spend the rest of the day having a bad experience with both me and yourself, opposed to having a bad day by yourself and having the support of me, right? So yeah.
That story. All right, so last piece is be direct and get to the point. Now, with this, I'm sure it's important and I'm sure you'll have a different perspective on this, but as someone who is in psychosis or struggling, I may not understand. You can say something directly to me, and if you're like beating around the bush, I'm not gonna get what you're saying. Like, my brain is already not comprehending what's going on around me. Now I have to decipher what someone is saying to me. Like, it's just not going to happen. So you need to be direct. You need to tell me what you need from me, what you need, like whatever it may be. Just get to the point. Don't waste time. Just be direct. Absolutely direct. As hard as that may be sometimes, like, you just need to be direct.
Yeah. I know you don't always love it. So if your partner is, or your whoever it is that you're trying to help or you're trying to interact with is in a situation like this, that so for me, I kind of have like my first aid checklist, and it's to make sure that you're like self-harm, make sure that you're in a safe space, and then going through the list, like, did you eat? Are you hydrated? Are you somewhere where you can sleep? Because these are cornerstones of mental health, right? Like, people don't realize how critical sleep is, when it comes to mental health. Like if you're not hydrated, your brain's not functioning properly. It's a matter of physiology. Same thing like eating. Like when you're in psychosis, you lose track of time. You lose your appetite. You're so flustered you can't figure out what you want to eat. So
you don't know what's real, let alone
exactly,
what food
right?
is.
Like I remember there was a time where you were hanging out with your sister. I came home from work and like I just rattled off the questions and I was like, "When's the last time you ate?" And your sister was kind of like, "No, she's not feeling well. Like she has to see." And I'm like, no. Like we're not going through all of that. Like I'm not here for the warm and fuzzy. I'm just like, I know you can't meet me at this conversation to have this, how was your day, blah, blah, like we can't really do that in that scenario. I need to make sure that the critical things are ticked off and then we can try and go through those other, formalities of the day. And it's, okay, did you eat? When's the last time you ate? What did you eat? Like a chocolate bar was not a meal, right? So again, like Jess said, like getting to the point, asking pointed questions, yes or no. You gotta realize like you can't ask leading questions. You can't ask questions that can just go off into nowhere. If somebody's not in the headspace to even be able to think, the best thing you can do for them is give them yes or no questions, right? So yeah.
Yes, oh my gosh. Make my life easy, yes and no, just yes.
And then move on from there. So it might feel a bit impersonal, and sometimes that's what it needs to be. Like you need to take all of that out, like taking the emotion out of it, taking yourself out of the situation. It does become a very sterile interaction or conversation, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think a lot of time people want to come to that table with the warm and fuzzies and all of that stuff, all that jazz, and you got a boo-boo, sure, but I can't see where you're hurt. I can't see, it's easy to see a broken bone. You can't see what's disconnected in the brain. So yeah, like there's no Band-Aid for that. You just got to get to the point and then go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is all I had for the how to have the conversation part. Again, all pieces are incredibly important, and just the most thing is to be non-judgmental and open and patient and just be a safe space for that person. Because one conversation goes wrong, that person's not going to come back to you again. Like they're going to know. They are going to know. Because I've had some good conversations and I've had some bad conversations, and I know who I can talk to and who I can't, and that's unfortunate.
I'd like to add to that list, don't assume anything. Don't assume you know anything. Don't assume they know anything. Don't assume anything they say is right or wrong. Just don't assume anything. Be open. And I would put at the top of that list, if you are going to participate in this conversation, don't try and fix anything. You can't.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Don't offer solutions. You can't pray it away. You can't meditate it away. You can't walk it away. You can't, I don't know, whatever solutions, I don't know what else you've been offered. You can't mushroom it away. You can't, you can't, don't. Because you going in with that hubris and that arrogance that you've thought of some solution that they've never thought about, that you can fix their mental illness or their mental health, fuck right off. Like, don't do it, okay? If you're going to help somebody, listen.
Yeah.
Trust professionals. This isn't, again, like I said, this isn't, a cut on your forearm. Like, you can't just put a Band-Aid on this. It's a process, and it's a process that is going to come in cycles. It's going to reoccur. It's going to have highs and lows. If you're going to be there on that journey with that person, be there on that journey. If you're only going to be there at their lowest and offer this snake oil and then pedal off into the shadows, just don't show up at all. Just don't, because you're only going to make it 10 times worse. Because when that snake oil stops working and that person is just as lost, if not 10 times worse than they were when they first met you, that's your fault, because you led them down a path. So don't try and fix it. Listen, try and help, try and create a support network for that person. It's a journey. It's not, like I said, it's not a Band-Aid solution. So if anybody, and I'm going to say this again, if you think that you're going to partake in a conversation with somebody about their mental health or their mental illness and offer some solution, whether it be religion, whether it be drugs, whatever it may be, don't do it. It's harmful. Even medicated people with the most severe mental illnesses that are monitored by doctors and have the best support networks, they will have relapses. They're chemicals in the brain that are on cycles. They react differently to a plethora of things in human body and in the environment. And to this day, we don't know how to cure it. There is no cure. So to offer somebody that false hope that whatever it may be, pick something on that list that I rattled off, is going to cure them, just keep your distance. Please.
I have nothing to add to that, but great point. Absolutely great point. So next I'm going to get into what not to say, but is there anything else you would like to add to the do list?
I guess this will kind of tie into what not to say, but do your best to make them feel not only safe, but normal, because mental health and mental illness is normal. The same way that if your friend fell down and cut their knee and needed stitches, you would not then make them feel less than, make them feel ostracized, make them feel crazy, because to you that's just a normal course of the human experience. Is you fall down, you get a cut, you bleed. Our brain is no different. Whether it be trauma, whether it be chemical imbalances, whether it be some other unknown external or internal factor that's contributing to this person's mental health or their mental illness, it is normal. So to speak to them as if, or to speak with them as if that they are different, you are again doing them a disservice. Don't do it. And that is another reason I think why I don't react, because to me, I don't view that as abnormal. I don't think ADHD, I don't think depression, I don't think schizophrenia, I don't think any of those are abnormal for the human experience. I believe that we are all on a spectrum. Whether, some of us may have some autistic traits, some of us may have some traits of depression or whatever. We're all on a spectrum. Nobody is normal. There is no human that is 100% optimal and free of any ailments and diseases. We all suffer from something and experience something at some time or point in our life. So if you have that mentality going into the conversation, it helps, because then you're not really trying to cure something, you're relating to another person. And you're trying to understand and listen to and relate to their experience as it might relate to yours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Love it. So now we're going to get in what not to say. And this the first one goes into what you said. And if you're trying to help someone and be there for them and support them, do not call them names. Do not call them crazy. Do not call them weird. Whatever abnormal or whatever it may be, it's rude. In any situation, it's rude. You're gonna make that person feel like this big, or you're going to completely offend them. Like, there's times where Clint will be like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Are you okay? Because I'm fine, man." Like, and then if someone was to call me crazy in that situation, I would get offended, like very offended. Or if I do have a little bit of awareness and I'm already feeling bad about myself, that is just gonna put me right over. So please, please, crazy, weird, out of your vocabulary. Just anything to add to that?
I would say just like, there's no place for labels in that conversation. I think even there's times where you're feeling something and you talk about, whether it be ADHD or schizophrenia or whatever it be. And I typically try to steer away from it because I don't, putting somebody in a box, putting a conversation in a box, putting your emotions or your feelings or your reactions in a box really doesn't do anything for anybody, right? Like, to come to me and be like, "Oh, like, am I acting weird?" Or, "Oh, like, this is another trait for schizophrenia that I check off of." And it's like, well, okay, what does that do for you? And I know you hate that question, but it doesn't really, I'm talking from my perspective. For me, trying to understand, I don't think putting that conversation in a box, again, like calling you a name or labeling you as something, I don't think that helps, because you're dealing with, in that instance, you're dealing with symptoms. You're dealing with, whatever it may be that you're experiencing in that moment. To chalk all of that up, that your one experience today to something else, to a name, it doesn't help.
I get where you're coming from, and I do understand it, but coming from someone who struggles to grasp the concept that I am ill, that there's something not wrong, but something isn't working as it should, for me to know and say, "Hey, maybe I do have this, maybe I do need help, maybe I do need to put the effort in, maybe that's the step that I need to actually get help," or for me to like grasp and be like, "You know what? Oh my gosh, I have schizophrenia," instead of like trying to fight. Like, how many times have I told you I don't need my meds? So from where you're coming from, I totally get it, and it totally makes sense, and I appreciate you not wanting to put people into a box, but sometimes
I guess I'm trying to come from it from a medical standpoint, and I mean, if any of you guys have ever watched any medical shows or talked to a doctor, again, you need to look at the symptoms before you label something, because it is very easy, for a doctor to see a pattern or a trend and just say, you got cancer, you got cancer, you got cancer, you got cancer, right? Because that's just what they're used to seeing when they see somebody in this scenario. But if you don't look at each case individually, if you don't look at each symptom individually, if you don't look at each experience differently, it's very easy to miss things, right? And so it's, like, we could have the same conversation. We could, you can tell me you're experiencing the same things, and then one day you might tell me you're experiencing something different. And if I started that conversation with you with, you coming to me and say, "Am I acting weird?" And I just say, "Yep, you're weird." Check that box off. That's your label. We're done. It's an easy route for me, but you end up suffering. So I get where you're coming from your side. I'm talking about from the side of the person who's trying to help. Again, like we said in the previous list, don't assume anything, and try not to bring anything to the table. So any labels, just try not to go down that route. Because it's, again, like, if you're allowing that other person who's not in a good headspace to just label a situation, then you, who's trying to help them, is going to miss out on tons of details that could help them with something that they would have missed otherwise.
I do get it. So don't interrupt or rush people when they are trying to talk. Again, this comes back to what I was talking about earlier. I may not be able to grasp what is going on. I may not be aware of the situation. You can say something to me. I don't know what you said. That's happened to us before. He's literally looked me dead in the face and said something to me. And I'm just like, what did you just say? Sometimes it's going to take a second for me to process what has been said. So you need to give me 5 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever it may be. I'm eventually going to talk. Or there's times where I physically can't talk, or it's incredibly hard for me to talk. So when someone says something like, spit it out, hurry up, you feel really bad about yourself. So just, again, this comes back to being patient in all situations with this person. You need to be patient and don't rush, interrupt, let them, even at their sloth pace, like you need to let them do their thing. So don't ask questions that insinuate the situation is their fault. So something like, what did you do to cause this? I've literally have that been asked, and I just was like, what makes you think that this is my fault? Like, I didn't do anything. So that, and I understand where people come with that one, but it's like, it makes me feel like you're putting the blame on me. Like I should be able to control the situation. Like I should be able to deal with all of this and just move forward. But no. So don't, no. Just no. Anything to add to that?
I don't even want to touch that one.
Okay, all right. So the last one I have for this is don't force anything. So if we start a conversation and things start out good and they take a turn and I say, I need a minute, or you can sense that I need a minute, don't force it. Just let it be. There's a time to push things and then there's a time to step back. You're gonna know the difference in the situation, but don't force and force and force and push, because you're just gonna get pushed back. And again, that person is not gonna come back to you. They're not gonna be responsive. They're just not. Yeah, just don't force anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think that comes from, again, like, that comes from the mindset of the person who is trying to help. If you're in that, if you're coming to that table because you want to figure things out, you need to fix this needs to stop, you're worried about that person, you're scared, you feel uncomfortable, then yeah, we need to have this conversation, it needs to be finished now, I need to understand what's going on. Take a hike.
Yeah.
If you are there to help somebody, you're there to listen, you're there to be patient. You're not there to solve anything. You're not there to fix anything. If they come to you or if the conversation is going off the rails, or if they need a minute, then you give them a minute. What is that like? What's so hard to understand about that? But if you're not coming from a genuine, good place trying to help this person, you're not going to see that, because you're bringing all of that to the conversation. You're bringing that anxiety, you're bringing that stress, you're bringing that that this has to happen now on your time, not on the other person's time. This has to happen now. We need to figure this out. That's about you. That's not about the person that you are quote unquote trying to help. And I say that because that is not help. You don't help people on your time. You help people on their time. You meet them where they are. And if that is not a good time for you, then you have to step away. You might have to, that's why you need a support network, because it might not always be, I might not always be in the right place to help Jess. I might not always be capable to help Jess. And that's where her psychologist comes in. That's where psychiatric help comes in. That's where a doctor comes in, right? You have to have that network, because you can't have that hubris that you are going to fix this for this person.
And I know you already brought this up, but I didn't put it on the list. And from my perspective, don't try and fix. Like, you're not, if I'm delusional about something, like, I'm sure, like, you've tried to reason with me, you've tried to do these things, and it's just like a wall. Like, you're not going to get through to me. I'm going to get frustrated. You're going to get frustrated. Everything's going to go kaboom. Again, there's no cure to this. So don't try and reason it away, or don't try and fix it. Like, allow the right people to do what they need to do. And if you feel as though you can't put anything into that situation, like you were saying, like, that's where other people come in and you have that support network. So, yeah, just don't, as hard as it may be, I understand being in a situation. I can't imagine watching someone be in an episode or do that and not want to, like, fix and just fix that situation for them. But it's, no. So I think that's it.
That's good.
Anything else you'd like to add? Okay, so again, just watch out for the warning signs and be polite in your approach and be kind and be open and not judgmental, and you will be met hopefully with some kindness in return. But no, that's not always going to happen. Not always going to happen. So again, don't be reactive. But I think that is it on my end and it on his end. So thank you.